Hey, I'm Dr. David Krohse with Compass Chiropractic. The story of how I became a chiropractor, how I became the chiropractor I am today, is actually a really crazy story. So it starts back when I was 5, my brother Joshua was 7. We were riding with my mom from Kansas up to South Dakota in this little Subaru station wagon. And we were going highway speed and a UPS truck T-boned our car. And somehow I came out of this car accident completely unhurt. But looked up and my brother had been slammed into the side of the car hard enough that his skull was actually fractured from right above his eye all the way up to the top of his head. So 7-year-old little boy, probably 4-inch, it was broken open. And so, I mean, a portion of this is a blur. I have this vague memory of riding in the back of this UPS truck and blood was coming down Joshua's face. Half of his face was covered in blood. But it was 1984, so we didn't have cell phones. So we're riding in the back of this UPS truck, like looking for a farmhouse so that we could actually call 911. And fortunately, pretty quickly, we did get to this farmhouse. My mom and the UPS guy got 911 called. And in a pretty short period of time, like a life flight helicopter came. My mom and my brother were loaded into that helicopter, flew off to Wichita, Kansas. And I was actually left in this rural farmhouse, fortunately with this sweet older couple. It kept me safe overnight. All I remember at the time, I loved hot air balloons, and I have this memory that they had hot air balloon picture on the wall, and that stood out to me. But the next morning, my dad came and picked me up, and we went over to Wichita. My brother was in critical condition. He was in there, and there was this period of time they weren't sure he was going to live. They did a skull repair surgery, and over the next couple days, they monitored him, they got him stable. And then there was a couple days they were able to check his brain function. And I mean, there was a fear that this little 7-year-old boy was going to come out of this thing a completely different person. But when they checked his brain function, they found that he still had his long-term memory and he still had his intelligence. So we were super fortunate. Joshua, my brother, was still the same person. So our family stayed in Ronald McDonald House, which I got to tell you, that is a great charity. If you ever get a chance to donate to that, they provide free or very super low cost housing for people whose children are in the hospital. And we used that service when we were there. But we stayed in Ronald McDonald House for it was over a week. After a few days, my brother actually had like a plastic surgery to try to minimize the scarring. Ultimately, my family got to come home from the hospital, and we just felt so fortunate. I mean, we felt like we had a miracle happen for our family because my brother was able to talk, he still was intelligent, and we just felt so fortunate. Well, we got home and Joshua continued to heal, but what was really frustrating is that then he started to have these terrible headaches. So at 7 years old, my brother would spend these half days or entire days in a dark room. He was missing significant amounts of school. When we were home, if I was making noise, my mom would like yell at me, "Hey, you got to be quiet. Your brother has a headache. He's in the room with the lights off." And so our world was totally different. That started a series of visits to different doctors to try to figure out what they could do for Joshua's headaches. And ultimately, Joshua got referred to go over to this pediatric neurologist. And so my mom took him in. The doctor did a thorough exam on my brother, ultimately sat down with my mom and said some words that changed the course of my life anyway. She said, or this neurologist said, "I think you should try taking him to a chiropractor." And that came completely out of left field. So my mom was a nurse. I don't think the word chiropractic, I mean, let's be honest, it's a little bit of a hard word to say, but I don't think it was in anybody in my family's vocabulary. But given that recommendation, clearly my mom, and the situation that my mom and dad were in, they respected that doctor's advice to try taking Joshua to a chiropractor. And so they took him in, and this doctor recommended a plan of care. I mean, it was at least 2 months, maybe 3 months was like that initial recommendation. And they followed through. They took Joshua. You know, it was a crisis situation. Their little 7-year-old boy was not able to function normally. And I got to tell you, in a relatively short period of time, Joshua's headaches improved to the point where he was able to get back to being a normal kid again, able to play. Josh is now 43. He lives over in Cedar Rapids. and he still doesn't deal with significant amounts of headaches. And so with that initial experience, my mom was dealing with with symptoms after the car accident as well. So she was having all kinds of neck pain and headaches. She started going to a chiropractor. She got great results. And so when I got to college, I actually started college as a mechanical engineer. Got into these classes, looked around the room, and as soon as I got in there the first day, I was like, somebody does not fit in here. I mean, I just was like, oh no. And so really quickly, I mean, I could handle the coursework, but I was like, I am not cut out to be a mechanical engineer. Did a research paper that second semester on chiropractic, and was kind of iffy about the profession as a whole. The history of chiropractic, I mean, essentially, I don't know, I wanted to be in a profession where people really respected us. And the history of chiropractic is that sometimes people look at chiropractic and they say, I don't know about this profession, or people don't respect it a lot. But ultimately, my junior year of college, I'd completed the prerequisites for chiropractic school. I'd done organic chemistry. I went and visited the chiropractic school, and I got to tell you, I was so excited. When I got there, people were just excited about becoming a chiropractor. That motivated me, and I became a chiropractor. And so that's the first big story, is just my brother getting in that car accident. Without that happening, without that catastrophe and that near-death experience, and then the terrible headaches that completely changed who my brother was, getting recommended to go to a chiropractor, I wouldn't be here today as a chiropractor. And so ultimately, as much as I wish that wouldn't have happened to my family, it did change the course of my life. And it certainly, looking back on that, gives me a respect that if somebody's dealing with somebody that, you know, standard medical care, medicines aren't helping, it's like, try chiropractic. Like that neurologist said, you know, give it a try, see if the body can heal itself. So I finished chiropractic school, and I got this dream job. I went out to Western Washington. I was an hour north of Seattle in this community called the Skagit Valley. You really should Google this. I mean, it's a beautiful region. I was a 20-minute drive to the San Juan Islands. I could stand on top of a mountain in under an hour. Just the most gorgeous place in the world, and I did all this biking and hiking while I was out there. I got to work with this amazing doctor, Dr. Jeff Rindle, and he definitely coached me in becoming a better chiropractic adjuster. He also did an amazing initial exam. I got to see how people got great results with him, because he did start with this thorough workup, and I got to learn that and keep that with me in my practice. I will say he was super busy, and so his recommendations, I think early in his career, his recommendations were very specific. But at the point I was there, he was so busy that his recommendations were more like, well, let's do this for a couple weeks and see how it goes. And so I didn't get to learn a lot about recommending the actual plan of care that fixes a stubborn problem. It was more, let's try this for a couple weeks, see how it goes. Now, while I was out there, I was doing all this hiking, and I started to develop this right low back pain, and it was frustrating. If I had to look back and blame on it, I'm right-handed, and so when I adjust people, I stand on the left side of the table. I bend off to the right, and I think that repeated bending to the right started to aggravate some of the joints down in my low back. But I started to have this right low back pain, and then while I was out in Washington, it was going down into my right butt cheek. And I was getting concerned, but it was more of a nuisance level. So after a couple years out there, I had decided that I was going to move back to Iowa and open Compass Chiropractic here in Des Moines. And I chose Des Moines. A couple of my best friends lived here. I had two best friends that lived here in Des Moines. That's the only people I knew when I moved here. That was Matt, my best friend Matt, and then my best friend Michael. But I had decided on Des Moines, so I moved back here, and I started signing these over $100,000 of loans and leases, a 5-year commitment to lease the Compass Chiropractic space. And this right low back pain now starts to go down where it's going all the way to my knee. They start to build out my office. So they're starting to put up walls, you know, put in all the electricity for my office. And I was living in a house up on Lower Beaver Drive. I would drive over to my office, and now I find out my foot was going numb on this 15-minute drive over to the office that's being built out for my new chiropractic office. And I gotta tell you, that freaked me out. So you know, I'm trying to start a new chiropractic office, and I'm here thinking, am I going to be disabled, or am I going to need back surgery by the time that my new office is open? I mean, it was super scary. And so what I did, I was like, I need to start going to a chiropractor on a really regular basis. And so I got into this doctor. His office was just north of Hickman. And I just said, you know, this is freaking me out. I really want to go after this with a plan of chiropractic care. The doctor didn't really do a thorough workup. I ended up seeing him a couple times a week for 2 weeks. And I remember I walked into his office and he said, hey, are you feeling better yet? And I said, no, not really yet. And he said these words that I'll never forget. He said, maybe you should go see an orthopedic surgeon. And my jaw just dropped, my heart sank, or maybe it went up into my throat, I can't remember. But I was a chiropractor, and I was signed up for over $100,000 in debt to become a chiropractor. Like, going and getting orthopedic surgery wasn't an option. I couldn't believe this. And the other thing is that this problem had been building up for like 14, maybe 16 months. I knew it wasn't going to go away in a couple weeks. I mean, if it was a simple problem, it would have gone away already. The message of chiropractic is that your body heals itself if it's able to. And so the fact that it had hung around for this long, I'm like, I knew it was going to take a while. Anyways, this started a period of trying to find a chiropractor who would actually treat me how I wanted to be treated, or how I would recommend that a patient be treated, which is to say, like, actually put together a plan of care and really go after the problem. So now it's really interesting. I actually had some other super frustrating experiences with chiropractic. I remember I was going to this chiropractor up in Ankeny, and I walked in this one day. At the time, I had really terrible allergies. I've since figured out that gluten was actually the main cause of these allergies, but I walked in this day, and I was there for him to try to help my right low back. And he said, how are you doing today? And I was like, terrible. I forgot to take my allergy medicines. I was all puffy and my throat was scratchy. And I just left it at that. I was there for my low back. But he got me back in the treatment room, and I was lying on my back, and the guy was working kind of above my head, and he turns around and he starts to put on these rubber gloves. And I'm like, what is going on here? What is he doing? You know, I have rubber gloves actually in my office. I do have the gloves. The only time I would use them, though, is occasionally if somebody has a jaw problem, I would do a move inside of the mouth where I work on the muscles there. But that would be very much if I've asked the person's permission, like, do you actually want me to work on these muscles inside your mouth? He definitely didn't ask about that. Anyways, I'm lying flat on my back on his adjusting table. He's up here. He turns around, and without my permission, he smears this stuff that's like the equivalent of like Vicks Vapo Rub above and below my eyes on each side. And it's this strong menthol smell, and some of it like gets on my eyelash, and I'm like laying there like helpless as he smeared this stuff on me. And I was like, dude, I was like, you had better not get that in my eyes. He kind of laughed. He was like, well, don't move. And I was just thinking, like, what the heck, dude? I'm here for my low back, and you're smearing menthol stuff like above and below my eyes. Anyways, there was another experience with the chiropractor where the guy just refused to make appointments for me. And so one day I showed up, and he was like walking out of the office to go to some kind of a lunch and learn up in Ames. The thing is, like, here I just wanted to get fixed up with chiropractic care, and I could not find a chiropractor that would just recommend. I mean, here's what I learned overall with my experiences going to doctors and chiropractors. First off, it is hard to get a doctor to take your problem seriously. I mean, I was there, my pain was only like 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, but again, my foot was going numb on a drive over to my office, and it was gradually getting worse, and nobody seemed interested in figuring out exactly what the problem was. That was the other thing. I'd go in and be like, I really need help with this, and these doctors would just skip, or maybe they never do a thorough exam. So super frustrating, hard to get a doctor to take your problem seriously. Most doctors don't actually start with an actual thorough workup where they figure out exactly what the problem was. Or maybe that was just with me because I was actually a chiropractor, they were chiropractors, or medical doctors that maybe they weren't big fans of chiropractors. The third thing I learned is that it is super frustrating if your problem feels like a mystery. You know, I was scared that I was going to need back surgery, and these doctors didn't seem interested in figuring out what the problem was. And it's not fun when it feels like there's a mystery going on inside your body. The fourth thing, it's hard to get a doctor to recommend what they're most confident in to actually fix the problem. And so I wanted these doctors to be like, this is the plan. This is what we do. This is what we do in office. This is what you do at home. And let's do this and let's fix this problem. And at least my experience as a chiropractor was that these doctors did not do that. And so the last thing is just, the reality is that fixing stubborn problems takes a combination of care. So I'm going to tell you, I was gradually getting worse. Eventually I was just like, I was scared. And I'll tell you, there were these stretches and exercises that I was doing like 3 to 5 days a week, and I was getting gradually worse. And finally, I was like, I am having a hard time finding a chiropractor who will give me the plan. I was like, I need to put together my own stretch and exercise routine that I do at home. And I had this tipping point where I was scared. I was like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get better. And I was like, I put together this plan and I said, I'm gonna do this twice a day no matter what. And I tell my patients, I'm like, at that point, I hit a point where if I was in bed and realized I forgot to do my second set of stretches, I would actually get out of bed and do them. You know, it's like, think if you were in bed and realized you forgot to brush your teeth. You'd get out of bed and do it. You wouldn't be happy about it, but you'd get out and brush your teeth. And that's what I reached with my stretches and my exercise routine. And I'm going to tell you, within 2 weeks, I was finally going the right direction. And so all those things that I learned as I was a patient, I've taken away and I try to apply them in my practice. Like I say, no matter what, if you come in, if you're frustrated with the problem enough to come into my office, it's my job to view your problem as a crisis, put together the plan I'm most confident in, explain it to you, make sure that you understand what's going on so that you're not out there frustrated that your problem is a mystery, and ultimately just give you that plan and say, this is what I'm most confident in to fix the problem. I don't do it in a high pressure way, but I remember what it felt like to have a problem feel like a mystery in my body, and I don't want patients to experience that. So ultimately, that low back pain, that pain going down my leg, my foot going numb, when I started doing my stretch and exercise routine twice a day, I was still getting in for chiropractic care. I don't think at the ideal frequency to get better as quickly as possible, but I was getting in for periodic chiropractic care. My low back got better, and thankfully I'm able to be a chiropractor today without significant low back pain. But I'm going to tell you, that experience, as much as it was frustrating and scary when I went through it, it made me the doctor I am today, and gave me the awareness of what it's like to be a patient who's dealing with an ongoing problem, often frustrated because they're having trouble getting a doctor to take their problem seriously. The third big inflection point in my career, about 3 years ago, I went and did this seminar. Well, it was just 2 years ago. It was November of 2018, but I went to a seminar and I learned how to do a study called a motion study. And for years up to that point, I would do x-rays. I'm always somebody that says, I want to know what's going on in your body. But the frustrating thing is that sometimes I'd take x-rays of a region of somebody's body and it would look really, really scary, and they actually wouldn't be having major problems there. Other times, this person would have terrible problems. I'd get x-rays and their structures would look normal, and they're having like 10 out of 10 pain. And I'm like, it's hard when you go in and explain to the person, like, you're having this terrible pain, you've had this problem for years, and yet your x-rays look pretty normal. Here's the deal. Your body, how it looks, how those structures in your body looks, is not the most important thing. And there's different studies that have been done this. They'll take a group of 100 people with no symptoms, do MRIs on all their low back. They found that there's disc bulges, disc problems in 30% of 20-year-olds. You get up to 80-year-olds, about 84% of 80-year-olds have disc bulges, disc herniations. And these are on asymptomatic people with no problems whatsoever. So those abnormal disc findings that sound really scary, they're present in people with no symptoms. They'll take hips of people that have no symptoms. They do MRIs on all of them. This is people in the middle age of their life, 38 years old on average. And they'll find that 69% of people with no hip symptoms have hip labral tears. So does a hip labral tear, does that sound scary? I mean, it sounds super scary, but the reality is they're present in people with no symptoms. Meniscus tears, they take groups of people with no knee problems whatsoever. 36% of people have meniscus tears. The same with shoulder labral tears. There's a study done with 45 to 60 year olds. They did 45 to 60 year olds with no shoulder symptoms, and they did MRIs on their shoulders, and essentially 65% of people had shoulder labral tears. So again, these diagnoses sounds really scary, but the reality is they're present in people with no symptoms. What we see on an x-ray or an MRI doesn't tell us what the problem is. And so this motion study, like in the neck, I get a picture of the neck when a person's standing still. They tilt their head all the way forward, then they tilt their head all the way backwards, and you have 8 bones in your neck, or 7 bones in the neck, but 8 spots that should move. We're able to compare that, and we're able to see, are the 7 bones in the neck able to move, or are some of them stuck? And when we see those ones that are stuck, all of a sudden we understand that's what's causing the extra stress on the joints in that area. It causes swelling that pushes on nerves, that causes symptoms. And so this has given me mind-blowing just amounts of clarity about why people have these ongoing symptoms. And then it also gives me clarity about what to recommend to fix a person's problem. And so I just am so grateful that I took the chance on going to that seminar over in Chicago, learn how to do a motion study. And at this point, if somebody has ongoing neck pain, ongoing low back pain, I mean, I'm telling you that this particular study, a motion x-ray study, gives the most clarity about why people have ongoing neck pain, ongoing low back pain. And I'm so grateful to have that information as a doctor, because then I really can say with confidence, this is what we need to do to get the problem fixed as quickly and completely as possible. And the really cool thing, our results have just skyrocketed. So neck pain, back pain, headaches, symptoms down the arms and the legs, we've gotten cases of that before wouldn't get better. We get those better because we understand exactly what's causing the pain or problem. The really cool thing is that, in addition, people come in with these symptoms. They have digestive issues. They have difficulty sleeping. They have trouble relaxing. People have constipation. And as we know exactly what's not working in the low back or the neck or the spine in general, and we have that better plan to fix it, people are coming in, and just so many more people share these results of those other problems improving when we get their spine better. So it's been super fun. I'm super grateful that I went and learned that. And so overall, if you want to learn more about that, there should be a video below or in the show notes that explains more about how chiropractic helps with problems that aren't back pain, neck pain, headaches, symptoms down the arm or the leg. So overall, again, these are the 3 big inflection points in my life. That first story with Joshua, that if he hadn't been in that terrible, terrible trauma, you know, again, I wish that we could go back and not have that happen, but it did bring me here to where I'm a chiropractor today, and I'm here to help the people of Des Moines and Central Iowa get better. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't become a chiropractor. I feel pretty sure of that. That second inflection point of me actually experiencing low back pain, pain going down my leg and my foot going numb myself, and having to experience how frustrating it is to have an ongoing problem and struggle to get a doctor to take your problem seriously. If I hadn't experienced that, I would be an okay chiropractor, but I don't think I'd be a great chiropractor, because I think that to really find a great doctor, it is helpful to find somebody that's experienced it, the frustration of something similar to what you're experiencing. And then that third inflection point of going to that seminar, learning how to do the motion study, and really having clarity about what needs to be done to fix a problem as quickly and completely as possible. Those are the 3 big stories that brought me here today, where I'm confident to invite you to come in, no matter what problem you're dealing with, and say, let's get it checked out, let's figure out what's going on, and let's go over the plan to get it fixed up as quickly and completely as possible. So thanks for listening. Again, my name is David Krohse. I'm at Compass Chiropractic, and again, if you haven't come in as a patient, you can click below and learn all about how to come in and get checked out.